miniature steam engines coming into the arena, and you find they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. Single millimetre. No, we don't talk about millimetres in steam, but we talk about fractions of millimetres. It's the smallest engine on the side, apart from the fact that it landed out there with a mammoth sat beside it, so it wasn't the smallest one on the parade.
Look at these coming
but,
by.
that will generate power in its own right, exactly the same as the big ones do. And you have to remember, of course, that going around the arena here is quite a long way for these little engines, certainly the very tiny ones. They will have to stop and coal up and put a water partway around the arena. The size of the machine. You don't argue with these things. Little Shannon's engine coming in here. And with calipers on tour. Generator on the front, yeah. The gearing is the same, the boiler pressure is the same as the big ones. And whilst the big ones, of course, when they come into the arena, they're just idling around. The miniatures, of course, are actually tiny Shannon's engine. And you put the driver on the back of that, and he represents quite a load on that thing, only 50 tonnes on the road, the full-size one. There's a part-built one coming around now, still the generator on the front, hasn't got the canopy on it yet. But eventually it will have, of course. It will look more like the real thing. The engines that are supposed to go on the road have solid flywheels, and the ones that go on farm work have spoked flywheels. Now, why would that be, do you think? It's simply because they felt that the flashing would frighten the horses. So we will have solid flywheels if we're going to have steam engines on the road. The fact that most of the motive power rules and regulations, can we have some set other ones, please? Here comes a 6-inch version. Yeah, I know. Don't forget, if you go half size, it's half the width, half the height, and half the length. So yeah, it actually takes a quarter of the volume at half size. Of course, if you go the other way and you make an engine that's oversized, you only go up to about 16 inches to the foot. You end up with this enormous machine. Most of these coming around are single crank, in the same way as the original ones used to have. And here we have a foam wagon coming in beside. The foam wagon is referred to as an overtype because the power gear or the steam engine stuff was on the traction engine, and the drive's taken down to the rear axle through a very long chain. One of the drivers said he got this steam engine and he needed a new chain for it, thinking of course that they would say, oh no, we don't have that anymore, but they had to change something amazing. Another one of the overtype engines coming in here at the moment, another the favourites. The only disadvantage really with the overtype is of course that you end up taking up quite a lot of the chassis length of the machine because it shortens the load space quite a bit. The Sentinel's got over that by hand. Big Dad coming in here, big single-cylinder agricultural machine and fashion machines and all sorts of things. And one here which you would think, compound engine, which you would think would be used on a farm, but it's got solid flywheels, so it's a better draft with a fire. You certainly need it when you're starting the things up, because getting a little tiny fire to burn is actually quite difficult. Coal itself doesn't like burning as a single lump, it likes to have a bed of fire so that the dry coal can get the thing going. And so little tiny fires are actually quite putting the motion work underneath in much the same way as the diesel 2-stroke engines were placed under buses back in the 1960s. Another one of the little Shannon's engines coming in here now. And you'll find very often there'll be a fan on the top of the chimney. Usually scabbies from an old car, it'll be the heater fan stuck on the top. We've only got the 12-volt battery, get a bit of extra draft coming through the boiler. Still they come to the arena. When they called to school many years ago, I took a photograph and called sideline, and took it to Surrey's science master, who was called Mr. Potter, so that caused a bit of fun. And of course they're all beautifully polished up here. Today there with the 3 trailers on the back. Showmen are the only people who are allowed to have 3 trailers nowadays on the road. The showman's engine would very often be going along with just a hurricane lamp on the front axle for lighting. With filthy light going along with 3 packing trucks with a hurricane lamp, if you can imagine that. Well, how fast did you go? I said to one of them. Well, he said, that depended on how far it was to the next time and how close it was to closing time. I suppose that's a good answer, isn't it? You always like to be neat in this country. You always have a left-hand and right-hand engine when you're ploughing. It doesn't matter at all. You can have 2 rights or 2 lefts working together. It's just one facing the wrong way. It doesn't really matter. But of course we like to be powerful for their size. And there was a story of a full-size engine pulling a hedge out. The hedge eventually departed behind a row of bungalows, and they couldn't get the full-size engine in. So somebody said, well, what about getting the 6-inch? So they went and got the 6-inch one. And that was doing the job perfectly well. Don't ever argue with a steam engine, you will not win. A little timber tractor just there was a whole way of doing that, using the roll 2 logs running down from the side of the timber drogue, and you pull it up with an engine the other side with a rope that was going over the log to pull up on the thing. Then of course they were pulling the timber out of the forest. 1, 2, 3, nothing will happen. It did, magic! Usually when I say something like that, they do their own thing, they're taking notes of it all. Isn't that lovely? Sell the other one and they'll pay for the one that you've made and the one that you've just sold. So you come out of it with an inch.
Well done. Steam up, have you? Oh yeah.
Tell me that it's just coming into you then, yeah? John Rex, for a little bit. With the car on the back. There used to be a map years ago which showed you where all the available water was. It would show you where there were streams, culverts and rivers and all the other bits and pieces where you could pick up water if you were driving a steam engine. But of course a lot of those these days have been filled in, covered over or whatever. Put a pole on the back, there'd be a crane engine and they would be lifting cars on the line. And then of course they had to generate power to run the ride. So very often you'd have 5 or 6 engines parked next to each other with a plank in between them and one manning individual hurtling back and forth trying to keep all 6 cars at the same time. There's a little competition at home now. How many man-mod steam engines can you run on your own in one go? It turns out it's about 5. So there we have to line up about 10 inches here this weekend. And how many 1,000 hours work you're looking at there? Quite a few, I must say. Turn around the arena and we'll see all again tomorrow. The engine will go back to their stands. You can always go and talk to the drivers. They're all in house trained, they're quite nice really. And they'll tell you all about the engines and how you get into it and all the rest of it. On the top with the canopy and the Christmas stars and the boat and you cannot cut the car well away from the curb. So the guy's actually doing the driving in front of the hands on the throttle. And it confuses the police so end if they pull a steering engine up and they start talking to the guy with his hand on the steering wheel. He's not the driver, no. He's the steering, big circular barrels that you don't really say. things have changed quite a bit from doing that. And of course, if you're doing silence, the vapor comes along, picks the bail up, puts about 7 tons of plastic down the thing, and you put it in the stack yard, and that gives you cattle feed for the winter. That's about it. And they got very interested in this thing, and it ended up with the 2 policemen driving this thing round about half an hour. Great. And then with the big G on the front means it's a Garrett. Garrett's of course the police stand. And they were the only people actually with full-size engines that almost got into construction line work. There they had the bits going in one end of the shop and the finished engines coming out the other. And if you go there, you'll find that the floor of the second shop is made out of great big blocks of wood. If you drop a casting onto concrete, you'll probably break the casting. Drop it onto wood, it's bound. So that was the reason for the big floor. It's a steam engine. Steam roller. Steam rollers are quite unusual in the miniature world. Usually they're the traction engines. And in the real thing, if you have a showman's engine, full size, you can drive that with your car license. If you've got a little steam engine, you have to take a separate test for that. I did say we could have it all because we have to make sense. Basco's the boiler makers, they manufacture 6 on the overtype Poland. One of it represents the coach which the locomotive band, those of you who have seen a certain age will remember the locomotive band on the radio station. And they used to travel out the countryside in a steam-driven coach. I'm sure that they can't have me I'm going out the arena now with the classic style of living back there. So what's the difference between a living van and a living wagon? The caravan door opens outwards, on a wagon the door opens inwards. That's the difference. Of a story of a country boy who went to town to see the fair. And this is in the days of oil lamps and candles. And he got home late that night and they said, well, what was it like? Well, they keep their light in a bottle. Think about it. It's the first time you've ever seen an electric light.
Mr. Potter!
Actually, you see the belly tank underneath the boiler room, give it a bit of extended range, otherwise the only 40 guys in the centre of the back, so that extended range like that. You know those big, well the engines can pick up water from anywhere about 28 feet down into the steam ejector which allows them to lift water out of a river or a stream. And I saw a full-size engine put up one of those tanks. It threw the hose in, turned the steam on, and it emptied that tank in about 15 seconds. I've never been so fast, it went down so quickly. The vacuum and the atmosphere.
Alright, okay.
Filled the tanks up in no time. So there we go, it lasted about miniature steam going out of the aluminum there with a lovely setup of typical thing you would see with a showman going from one big out to another. And they are still the only people these days who are allowed to tow 3 trailers.